Welcome to Perspectives, a podcast where the clergy women of the First United Methodist Church of San Diego share their musings on scripture, theology, and what it has to do with us.
Welcome to Perspectives. I'm Reverend Hannah here with Reverend Trudy in the studio. In this season of Lent, we are starting a new series on the stories that save us. We are looking at the stories of faith, the stories that save us. As a part of our Lenten series, we are also reading a book together during this season called Wholehearted Faith by Rachel Held Evans to round out our exploration of the stories that save us. You will read about one believer's journey as she wrestles through her faith. And you can find more information on patreon.com/FUMCSD. Today, as part of this series, the first one, we'll be talking about the story of proximity with the story of a hemorrhaging woman found in Mark chapter 5, verses 25 through 34. The story goes like this. Now there was a woman who had been suffering from hemorrhage for 12 years. She had endured much under many physicians and had spent all that she had, and she was no better, but rather grew worse. She had heard about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. For she said, "If I touch his clothes, I'll be made well." Her bleeding stopped immediately, and she sensed in her body that her illness had been healed. At the very moment, Jesus recognized that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" His disciples said to him, "Don't you see the crowd pressing against you? Yes, yet you ask, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus looked around carefully to see who had done it. The woman, full of fear and trembling, came forward. Knowing what had happened to her, she fell down in front of Jesus and told him the whole truth. He responded, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace, healed from your disease." We all know this story. Have done this story a lot of times. What's new?
It's a favorite story of mine, you know. I mean, all of these stories that we're going to be talking about this series, they're favorite stories. And this one of this hemorrhaging woman, I just love it. There's so many aspects to it. And one aspect that we have talked about before in this podcast about other scripture passages, but we didn't mention it yet, is you know what I'm going to say.
Yes.
It is what I love about the Gospel of Mark. He sandwiches stories. And he has done it here with this one, although we didn't actually read it, but it's worth sharing just a little bit about it. So the technique that Mark uses is he'll have two stories, but he'll take one story and sandwich it right in the middle of another. So he'll begin one story, and before he finishes it, he is interrupted. He's likely on his way somewhere, and that's what happens with this one.
He knew the modern-day movie skills.
Well, there you go. Yeah, tell a story, make it punch. It was, yeah. So the story that he interrupted was the story of Jairus, a leader in the temple, probably a presiding elder, if you will, as a position of honor. His daughter is ill. And so Jairus comes to talk to Jesus and ask him to come to his daughter and heal her, right? So, which I think is interesting. It shows that not all of the Jewish people were afraid or disbelieving of Jesus or hated him. This is a Jewish leader seeking Jesus because he has heard these things about him and wants his help. And Jesus says, "Yes, okay, I'll go." His 12-year-old daughter is ill. Jesus is on his way there when this story occurs. He's passing through the crowd. this woman who has been hemorrhaging for 12 years has reached out to him. And so these two stories, and eventually Jesus does make it to Jairus' house and heals his daughter, actually touches her by the hand after she's passed away. So he initially is too late to do the healing, and of course that's never too late for Jesus. Grabs her hand and says, Talitha cum, which is Aramaic for get up. She's healed. The woman who's hemorrhaging is healed. There's two healing stories that we are supposed to read really and have one interpret the other. Right? That's why they're sandwiched.
Yes. Beautifully explained.
Well, I'm not sure about that. But I love this stuff. I love this stuff. And there's themes in it, right? There's the 12-year theme. The daughter is 12 years, probably around the time she would start her menstruation, right? She would start bleeding. And you have this woman who has been bleeding for 12 years, right? You also have the significance of the number 12, as in the 12 tribes of Israel, right? So that's in there. And what role does that play?
So Mark is a little sneaky compared to other gospel writers. So Matthew is pro-Jewish community. Luke is pro the underdog and those oppressed and marginalized.
More so than the others.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. And John is just too poetic and he's too well refined and developed in his theology. But Mark here brings different perspectives together. Here you see the temple's high leader and his family for healing, and we have this religiously impure lady, and their stories are sandwiched. I don't know if that goes against their purity law about mixing the pure religious
stories
leaders.
that might be in there. Who knows?
So, but he mixes the Jewish traditions with the breaking of the Jewish laws, and I was wondering if he was the one who was reading inside Jesus' mind more closely, where he's getting at. There's the law that they inherit from the tradition, but there's the law that Jesus is trying to build.
That's right.
For people.
And there's that's another theme that's in both of these stories, I think. It's implicit in there, and it has to do with power for me, right? You've got Jairus, who comes to Jesus, bows down before him, honors him. That's a sign of honor. I honor you. I'm asking something of you. And it was supposed to have come from a man, not a woman going up and say, please give me this. And you need that intermediate. That's the law, right? That he did it in an appropriate way of asking for help. And then you have this woman
Rough all over
and illegal, according to the law, right? A bleeding woman, literally, she should be staying home. She shouldn't be out and about at all. But the fact that she's in a crowd means that she could very likely brush into anybody. And as soon as she would brush into anybody, they would become unclean. They would be impure. They would have to go home or be, cleaned and rejuvenated from the priest, right? So she was breaking the law by even being there.
Yes.
Right? And yet she empowers herself, which is why I love this story, right? If only we all could be so courageous to get what she needs and to reach out and touch the hem of Jesus's garment, And the scripture says, if I just touch the hem, that's enough. And maybe that's exactly what she was thinking. But I imagine she was also saying, I don't want to touch him because I don't want to make him impure, right? But she did that, right? And then you have Jesus, who heals both of them, right? And I just find that incredibly amazing that Jesus, caught between these two worlds, as you say, Mark is kind of riding these two worlds between what he knows is the Jewish law and what he knows Jesus is trying to do. And Jesus himself has the wherewithal to be close enough and so grounded enough to what he is trying to do that he's not swayed, he doesn't lose his focus, he's not distracted, he doesn't have any ounce of, oh my gosh, this woman touched me, and that, oh no, wait, I'm doing something new. He doesn't have any kind of second guess or any kind of, I have to remind myself what I'm doing. You know what I mean? He just knows I'm doing something new and different. And it's not about the law that Jairus is following or the protocol that he's following. It is about tending to the needs of people who need to be healed. And nothing else matters, right?
So true.
So you have Jairus with the power of what used to always be. You have the woman who is about taking power for what she needs, empowering herself. And you have Jesus and the power of being able to do what he knows needs to be done, regardless of anything else that might get in his way.
Yes. And you mentioned the power to describe both Jesus and this lady, and the power to those two powers are coming close to each other, and it's the attraction that they make. It's not just Jesus' power to go out and touch this poor, powerless lady to heal her and save her. It was coming from both ways, and that's what
right.
I meant when interactions.
I love it.
When we had a little conversation about this, the proximity to each other is very mutual. I used the word reciprocal earlier, but I meant mutual. So I cannot stand in proximity to you without you doing the same proximity to me. So,
oh, I love that. I love that. It's like coming together and sparks flying between us, right?
Yes.
There's a theologian who's written a book about the idea that God is the space between people.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it's what happens when we come together.
And so here is Jesus, who knew that someone was courageous enough to dare to touch him. And this lady knew that Jesus wouldn't mind her touching this impure lady, touching Jesus, knowing that this man would have a different understanding of the power and the law. So those proximity saw each other at its heart and came together, and she was close enough to the law enough to be aware the consequences, but she was also not always remotely moved away from the community because she was close enough to overhear people's conversation and to keep her updated about the latest news about this man who is different, whose power is different from other prophets or teachers that she had heard about. So proximity is not just one way, her following him or him seeking her.
That's right. It's what happens with them together.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Jesus decided to use his divine power or whatever power he had and whatever understanding of the law he had, whatever intention he had to build a new tradition. He used this power at the service of this lady who was in desperate situation.
So it's really interesting to me. So I wonder if the proximity of Jesus with Jairus and Jairus' daughter had the same kind of sparking effect.
I would like to believe so.
Right, And it's also really kind of beautiful that Jesus offers the chance, even if it's not quite reciprocated or mutual.
Yes.
Right?
And I wondered if Mark wanted to speak to both to the Jewish community and to those people who could not be religiously pure.
Right. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There can be a problem in that.
Tell me more about
There
it.
you go. That's right. That's right. When Jesus feels the power go out from him, he wonders who touched him. And he searches the crowd. And the woman, she's healed now. She could have snuck away. She could have, backed up slowly and said, yay, and just did a little happy dance on the way home, right?
Yes. Silently.
Silently, but she didn't, right? She stayed and owned up to the way in which she broke the law, and she reached out for what she needed and received it. And she owned up to that truth. And Jesus says, you are my daughter, right? Daughter, your faith has healed you. Daughter. Calls her daughter, which is another theme, because it was Jairus' daughter that they were going to go, Jesus was going to next, right? So for me, I think the way these stories interact is that we almost have a choice of whose daughter we're going to be,
Yes.
right? We could be Jairus' daughter, who has certain kind of proximity, a proximity to honor in the synagogue, to the law and the protocols that he would follow, and, a little curiosity about Jesus, But it may not quite be the same thing as the woman who was called daughter. The daughter of Jesus, because of that deeply intimate moment they had. I think it's intimate, right? She's bleeding.
Yeah.
You know when you're losing blood. And Jesus knew when he was losing power. And they were giving that to each other.
Yes. Yes.
Right? And that's deeply intimate. And so we have the choice. What kind of relationship are we going to have? What kind of proximity are we going to have? Are we going to be the daughter of Jairus, who only goes so far? Maybe not enough to get the spark going? Or are we going to be the daughter of Jesus?
Yes. With that question, also, that prompted me to think about our proximity in relationship. Jairus' daughter was biological daughter. That's blood related.
Okay.
But Jesus calling this bleeding lady a daughter.
Yeah.
Jesus is the one who is claiming her to be in relationship with him. So the proximity is going back and forth from both ends. And I would rather, I always tell you, I'm God's favorite daughter.
I don't argue. I don't argue.
No, I believe that everyone is God's favorite daughter. As long as we are aware of it. And I think she heard it this time. Daughter, go in peace, you're healed.
Yeah. It's a beautiful story. It's a beautiful story and so powerful and so much theology packed into it. Yeah.
Wow. Yes.
I hope as you guys are hearing us talk, you will go back and look at the full, both stories. That has been our perspective. We hope you are forming your own perspective with the scripture reading. I encourage you to go through and read both of the stories and the way they're sandwiched together. And I also encourage you to consider these questions. And if you have a chance to talk them over with someone, I encourage you to do that. If you want to talk them over with us, feel free to drop us an email or introduce a chat in the Patreon website. These are your questions. Where does your power come from? When have you been empowered to do something risky for good? And what can you do to be closer in proximity to God? We hope you'll think hard and enjoy the process. We'll see you next time. This is a production of First United Methodist Church of San Diego. To learn more about our events and ministries and to access additional learning resources, visit fumcsd.org.